All right, welcome back to the Racing House. The second dose today. We had a bit of technical difficulties there, so thank you for bearing with us. But we're going to dive straight into our predictions for the upcoming Portuguese Grand Prix. Let's just have a look at what happened last year at the Portuguese Grand Prix. We had Lewis Hamilton on pole position, and then he obviously won the race with Valtteri Bottas coming in second place, Max Verstappen in third place. Lewis Hamilton also set the fastest lap, which is very interesting. What are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to actually go on to win the race? Who do you think is going to take pole position? Let's start there.
I think this is a tough one because obviously with all the undulations in the track, it's an up and down circuit, the mix of low speed and high speed corners. So it's one of those that could actually suit either team. And I think it's going to be one of those that whoever has adjusted well, because obviously we've had Bahrain, which is a nice open track and it's quick and it's flowing. Yeah. And then you have Imola that's quite tight and twisty and very narrow. I think whichever team has adjusted best in terms of setups and has learned the most from these previous two rounds, I think they'll be the ones with the advantage. Again, like I said in take one, I think Lewis is always going to have an advantage. I think it's just a built-in advantage for Lewis. I wouldn't be surprised to see Max on pole though. But I think again, it's difficult to look past the Hamver bot 1, 2, 3, isn't it? As always. But I think Bottas is actually struggling a little bit at the minute, particularly considering his performance at Imola. I know obviously he got taken out, but he's fading into those middle grounds, those middle places again, isn't he? So. Yeah. You can maybe see a Perez or a Leclerc, because obviously Leclerc was strong last year here, and he was fourth in the end. Yeah, I can see it being a Lewis Max and then a surprise. What do you think?
Do you know what? Just following on from what you said about Bottas, there, he's the only one that has allowed me to have some sort of saving grace with my predictions for 2021, because I kind of saw it coming in terms of how bad he could be this year, and it's not looking great for him. It looks like he's really struggling, like we discussed in that first live stream that we did, the difficult rear end of the car. He doesn't look like he's doing a good job in terms of managing it, but this could be his chance to really get to grips with the car. But I feel like with that dominance that Mercedes had last year at the track, I've got a funny feeling that it just won't fade away. It may suit their car a little bit more, especially if they're able to bring some development to the car, given the gap. And this is something that we didn't realize. The gap between the races, the first 3 races, has been was it a 4-week gap or 3-week gap?
Like a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of gaps in between. So it will allow these teams to potentially do some development and catch up. But I think for me, it's going to be Lewis, Max, and then one of the McLarens. I think one of the McLarens or Charles potentially. I really want Charles to get on the podium. He's impressed me, and the Ferrari seem to be able to use their kind of new engine that they've been working on for a year and a half probably, to really make an improvement. Go on.
I've got 2 questions for you. Just to take a bit of a temperature of how you feel things are going to go in this midfield. So question 1, who do you think is going to score more points this season? Lando Norris or Daniel Ricciardo?
I think Daniel Ricciardo. I have to go with Daniel. But at the same time, I have to say that I was wrong about Lando, because I really did expect Daniel to just go in and pretty much own that team and be the leader of the team. But Lando has surpassed all expectation. He's kind of made a conscious effort to drop the kind of joker of the grid, the young guy, energetic, full of jokes. And it's, like you said, all about the business, getting it done on track, being more level-headed with his approach whilst interacting with the media, other drivers. He really did enjoy that rookie year of his, just having loads of laughs, and he has surprised me so much this year. But I think Daniel will learn more about the team, get up to speed and edge it, because of one thing that I'm not sure about with Lando is his consistency, because he tends to do well on certain tracks and have a good start to the year, but I'm not quite sure how it will pan out throughout the year for him. I'm not really up to scratch with his record in previous kind of racing series. So maybe anyone watching in the comments section can let us know how Lando fares throughout the season. Is he able to bring that consistency that will allow him to beat his teammate, beat his rival in Daniel Ricciardo? I think Daniel will outdo him in that sense.
That's one of the rare occasions where you and me disagree. I think Lando's going to beat him.
Really?
Yeah, I really rate Lando this year. I think this is the year where he separates himself. So my second question is, seeing as you've gone for Daniel Ricciardo, who do you think is going to score more points? And I'm saying this on purpose: Lando or Charles Leclerc?
Do you know what? I just think the McLaren is better. I think the McLaren's a better car than the Ferrari, so I'd have to give it to Lando, especially if he keeps up these kind of performances where he just turns into an absolute beast at certain points during the races, like when he's just connecting everything. I don't think many drivers are able to kind of keep up with him. And obviously in the last race, Lewis Hamilton was able to catch up to him and things kind of fell into place for him. But I really do think Lando,
as well, as much as anything, wasn't it?
He surprised me a lot. He surprised me big time. And I think, because he's got the better car, probably one of the best engines as well, it's kind of all going to fall into place. And he said it during pre-season, like the Mercedes engine has really allowed the car to take the next step. So it's looking good for both drivers, whichever way you want to look at it. It's a massive opportunity for Lando. It's a massive opportunity for Daniel Ricciardo. So it's the consistency that really needs to be kind of brought through by Lando. And I think he will beat Charles Leclerc. Who do you think will come out on top there?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you and me have similar thoughts. I think it will finish a different way. So I would think, and this is my two-scene prediction. I think this is me with a bit of recency bias. I think Lando won't be far off Perez in terms of points. And I think Leclerc and Ricciardo are going to be very close on points when it comes to the end of the year. I could be wrong. I could be way off. But that's just the feeling that I get at the moment. Because I think everyone expected Ricciardo, like you said, to just jump in the car, be really quick, just dominate Lando straight away and stamp his authority on the team. But there's a lot of change. There's a lot of flux in that situation. And not only with a new driver, but also the team are getting used to that new power unit. And that's not nothing. You know what I mean? That's something that they're having to get used to. And going into a new situation where there are other moving parts and there are other changing situations, it does take longer. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Ricciardo come on really strong towards the end of the year, once he's found his feet and he's comfortable and he's settled. But I think by that point, Lando will have really hit his stride. And I think those consistency questions will start to fade because he is very comfortable in terms of his relationship with Zach Brown, his relationship with Andreas Seidel. Seems just really settled. And he's had that, like you say, he's had those couple of years of kind of settling in and being a bit of a, having a bit of a laugh and messing around with Carlos. I think the thing is, even outside of that, you can see he was very focused, and you can see he was very, he had certain goals. But now he wants that league driver status, and I think he's got the talent to take it. And I think Lando, with silliness turned down to maybe 7 or 8 and intensity turned up to 11, I think that's a very, very, very good F1 driver, and he's still really, really young.
He is super young. I think I often forget how young he is. But I think I've always said it in these live streams, it's that killer instinct, that lethal edge that I want to see from these younger drivers. Not being too overly sensitive. It's fine to be sensitive, but, when it comes to racing, we want to see them really just be ruthless. Like Max is constantly ruthless. Like Max was ruthless in the last race. So I'm very hopeful for Lando. Not quite sure he'll be able to get on the podium again. I'm going to put Daniel Ricciardo up there. or Charles. We've got a comment from Uman. He says, how many races do you think Checo will win this year? Ooh, I think Checo's got better. I know it's been only a few races, but you've definitely seen the improvement. The fact that he was able to beat Max Verstappen to pole, in terms of qualifying, out-qualified Max in the lot. I was so surprised by that. So it is very promising. In terms of winning a race, that's a bold call. I'm going to be an optimist and say 2 races. Let's say he'll cause a few more shocks and surprises. Because even me, I underestimated what he'd be capable of doing in that car. I physically didn't think Red Bull would even allow that to happen. And who knows what discussions were had in terms of team orders and how things would pan out. But I think he will win a race this year, potentially 2 races. But that's completely blown my predictions out of the water, because that means Max won't win anymore. So, yeah, I don't think that's likely, but we'll give it to him. I think they will hopefully share the honours. What do you think?
While you were talking, I was just doing some maths in my head for a reason. So my thinking is 23 races, so I rounded it up to 24.
Yep.
Actually, no, let me do some different maths. I'm going to move it down to 21 because I'm going to predict that a couple of them will be cancelled.
Yeah.
I think at least 2/3 will be won by Lewis or Max. I think that's a reasonable assumption to make.
Yeah.
So that's 14 gone. So that's 7 left. I think Bottas will probably get a couple. So that's 5
really?
left. Yeah,
really?
I think he'll get a couple.
Guys, if you're watching this on playback or watching this now, do you think Bottas will win a race in 2021?
Tell me that Bottas isn't going to win 10% of the races and he's in a Mercedes.
I think Bottas.
So it is.
Yeah, I know he's got the greatest car, but I personally think he will have a horrendous season this year. Sorry.
Yeah. I think he's going to have things break his way a couple of times this year, and then I think there'll be maybe a couple of weird ones where we have unusual winners. I would say 2 or 3 for Checo, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Because I think he's really good. I really rate him, and he just needs a look on his side. I think he needs a good quality.
He needs good starts.
We've seen that he's capable of now. He's good. He's much better than I think people really gave him credit for.
He needs to get his starts under control, because last race he was really showing up. I don't know if that was just the side of the track that he was on, but that's the one thing that I was banging on about. Because after that stat came out last year, I can't remember what it was, but it was just not a good look in terms of how badly he started races. Yeah. So that was the one thing that I knew he needed to work on. So hopefully he'll be able to kind of improve there.
New territory for him, though, isn't it? Up this far up the grid. I think there'll be a bit of an adjustment period for him, but I think if he has a good quality session and then all he needs is a good start, and then once he's in the race, I trust his racecraft. And I think that Red Bull's quick enough for him to just bag one at least. I think he'll get a few. I think.
Yeah,
2
that's one of the key things, because the competition is a lot tighter. There's a lot more chance of different teams getting on the podium and winning. That the number of races this year, even if Mercedes won 11 of them or 12 of them and wrapped up the title, that's another 10 races that other teams can win. And like, if you look back at who's won each year, Red Bull haven't really won more than 3 or 4, 5 each year. That still leaves a lot of races unless Mercedes just come out and dominate, which is looking unlikely at this point. That just means that's a lot of opportunity for other teams to come and win and get that moment they've been waiting for so long. Before we read out some more comments, we've got some great questions coming in. Keep on asking them, we'll get round to them. Your one wild prediction for the race. Let us know what your wild predictions are as well.
Wild predictions for the race. Another Lando podium.
Okay. You're back in Lando.
Yeah, back in Lando. I like Lando a lot.
You're following on with the strong Lando sentiment.
Consistent with the Lando love. I'm there. What would you think? What's your crazy prediction?
I need to stop talking about Charles, but if I hadn't just talked down Bottas, I would have said something along the Bottas lines. But, you know, I'm going to say Daniel Ricciardo on the podium. Yeah, it feels like a Lando v Daniel Ricciardo situation going on. But let's move on to some comments. So do you think Yuki will outperform Gazley this year? Me personally, I don't think so. I think Gazley's experience will come through. I think the car has changed a lot from last year. I just think Gazley will have that consistency, which tends to only come with age and experience, which will allow him to shine through. But this is coming from the same guy that said Daniel Ricciardo would wipe the floor with Lando from the get-go. So don't take what I say as gospel. What do you think, Adam?
I think it'll be an interesting one, because I think when it's said and done at the end of the year, that Gazley will finish higher than Tsunoda in the standings. But I think Tsunoda will have more outstanding performances. So I think he'll have that typical rookie, that promising rookie thing where he does some crazy stuff, that has some amazing races. Yeah. But then other weekends, he has an Imola weekend where he just bins it. And he's just like a bit rubbish. And so I think there'll be highs and lows for Yuki. And we've seen it before with young drivers. We've seen it before with Japanese drivers as well. I remember seeing that with Takuma Sato. One weekend he'd look incredible, and the next weekend you'd be like in 18th with wheel off. And you think, what's going on here? But yeah, I think it's interesting in terms of there's going to be a lot of eyes on that pairing this year, because Gazley's got this reputation as, you know, a race winner with a lot of potential and good experience. Whereas I think Yuki could kind of outshine him in some ways, while still actually ending lower in the standings. Because it's about potential, isn't it? At Yuki's age, it's about potential. He doesn't need to show that much consistency yet. Not yet.
No, I think that's a good point. And moving on to a question from Alfred, do you think Gazley will get a podium this year? Because when you just mentioned that Gazley is a race winner, I actually had tingles. I was like, damn, that is... You can say he's won a race. Not many drivers nowadays are able to say that. Not many drivers at all. Checo able to say it. I think he'll get a podium this year. Maybe not the race win, but I think it's possible. I mean, if it's possible for Gazley to do it, then why not Yuki as well? But I think the conditions and obviously the context of it all has to fall into place. Effectively, they have to get a little bit of luck on their side, a little bit of chaos, a few yellow flags, maybe even a red. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a circumstantial one. I'm not sure they've got the pace this year. Not at this stage, anyway. I'm sure, you know, things will change over this long calendar. But like going back to what I said before, I wouldn't be that surprised if there was due to some craziness that Yuki ended up on the podium, so ended up swearing his way to a podium. Just through some weirdness. Yeah, I don't know. I can see AlphaTauri having a couple of podiums, but I don't think it'll be quite as impressive a season as last year for them. Personally, I don't know.
I've got a few comments from you, man, about Bottas potentially winning 3 races. Bottas is a confidence driver. That is true. He will have 4 or 5 races where his confidence is high and he'll win a couple. Yeah, you know what? I was probably being a little bit flippant there. Adam, your point is bang on. With a car like that, you're going to be in with contention of winning. It's more likely to happen than not. So I'll concede there. I was wrong. Bottas, yeah, it's very likely going to be winning probably a couple of races this year. Counting out, what do you think Sainz will do this race? How do you think his season has started off? Like, I did a video pre-season about him potentially just being a seat warmer for Mick Schumacher, and I said that he just needs to give it his all and match Charles. Like, none of this, so I'll give him a year to get up to speed, which Mick often gets. I don't think Carlos will get that opportunity. I think I'm really rooting for him to be able to show them what he's about and just shut down any talk of Mick stepping up anytime soon. But I'm not sure why people are counting out Sainz. I guess it's because he's up against probably one of the most talented drivers, young drivers on the grid at the moment. What do you think about it, Adam?
I think he's come in and more or less done what he's needed to do, hasn't he? He's come in, not a great deal of drama, done pretty well, like not anything crazily outstanding, but also just good, just solid, which is what we've kind of known Sainz for now. I think he's known as just a very solid driver, which works for him and against him, because people kind of forget that he exists because he doesn't do crazy stuff. And is he a first driver for a team? Probably not. I don't know. He might be, but I don't think he is. And he's just a little bit quiet, and maybe I know obviously the Carlando thing was a big deal, but I'm not sure he's got that charisma and that kind of cutting edge, like you've talked about, that killer instincts to be that number one driver. And I don't doubt his talent. I think he's a really talented driver, and he's very, very solid. But I would not be surprised at all to see Schumacher take that seat in 2023 at all.
Yeah, I think when you just mentioned about him probably not having that killer instinct, I think my fears were confirmed when, I can't remember if it was the last race, but he was talking about the second race, who knows? He was talking about not pushing the car too much during the race. And I think he did the same in qualifying. I can't remember which race it was. Let us know in the comment section down below if you know what we're talking about. But that was like, wow. To think that and then to say it, that's just basically confirming the fact that he's not going to just go out there and hammer it and just go for it and be cutthroat and be bold, which is a bit worrying for me, because he's thinking about not being in the car. But I'm pretty sure the greats and the people that are able to just bring out those performances in all conditions, they may have that thought, but they're just like, I don't care, I'm here to race, which his comments kind of indicate he's not of that caliber. He's not of that mindset.
Being like conservative in the car and not wanting to be too risky and things like that. Do you know who he kind of reminds me of a little bit? He reminds me of Rubens Barrichello.
Okay. Why'd you say that?
Really likable, very good, pretty talented.
Are you saying this
not
team
a
up
world
is Ferrari
not
now?
a world champion? Like, he doesn't fill me with like, yeah, Carlos Sainz, yeah. Like, yeah. I've never felt like that for about Carlos Sainz. I think he's good, but if you were building a team and you wanted a good driver that you could depend on, cool. But if you want a good young driver that's going to go out and win races and challenge and, say the wrong thing at the right time and upset people when it needs to happen, is he that character? Is he that? There's a term in basketball called ceiling raisers or floor raisers, and I think Carlos Sainz is a floor raiser. Like, you always know that you're going to get a certain level from Carlos Sainz. Like, he's going to lift you up to a certain level in terms of your team. But he's not a ceiling raiser. He's not someone that takes a team to the next level. I think that's quite a good analogy, actually.
So you're saying he's a Scottie Pippen. Is it Scottie Pippen? Is that his?
Scottie Pippen rather than Michael Jordan.
Than Michael Jordan. I've got it. Hopefully he can prove me wrong this year, because I don't think he'll get too much more time to prove himself. He might get another year as the regs change, but who knows? Got a question from Intellect, bring in the wisdom. If Hamilton wins another championship, is it safe to say he is the greatest of all time. I want to say yes. However, there is the major factor of, in business, they say first mover advantage. Michael Schumacher was the first to do it in terms of breaking those records, having that clear gap in terms of championships. And I just think of Michael Jordan. Think of the Michaels: Michael Jordan, Michael Schumacher, Tiger Woods, all these greats. Some of the first to do it, maybe not Tiger. But I think
is the third Mike.
Who's the third one?
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson. All these people that are just
all these legends.
These legends that are global superstars. Michael Schumacher was the first to do it for F1, from what I believe. Like, he went way beyond the sport. If you mentioned his name, if you still mention his name, people know who he is. I know Lewis Hamilton does that, but I don't know if people will ever allow them to get past that position of him, Michael Schumacher, being the greatest in the modern era. So, and it's still in people's minds, and it's still in the minds of the young people, including myself, as they get into the sport, watch and Drive to Survive. You go and look
yourself in the young people, Sakki.
Yeah, I'm counting myself in that list of young people. Got my young person's bus pass, discount rail card, all that jazz. But if we're talking about titles, the answer is yes. But, in the hearts and the minds of people, I don't think it's as clear cut as that, because the first person to do it is probably going to stay in people's minds. So what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I remember the Schumacher years, and I remember hating Schumacher and loving him at the same time, thinking, I really don't like him, but I wish I was him.
Yeah,
I idolized him, but wanted him to lose at the same time. It was really strange, and I had the same with Kobe when Kobe was really great.
Yeah.
And Lewis has got that same thing now, where people respect him and people see him as being so good that they hate him, and they wish that he wasn't part of the sport anymore. But you can guarantee that when he leaves, everyone will say that he's up there in terms of top. I certainly think he's top three. I don't know. You look at Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton, and I think you can make a case for any of the three. You look at the numbers, Lewis has now surpassed both of them, you could argue, in terms of raw numbers. I still think it's very tight between Schumacher and Hamilton. I personally think Schumacher is currently the greatest, but I think it's very, very close, very, 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 very close to Hamilton.
Yeah, I think, just picking up from what you'll say, I think the only way it will happen if he just goes clear and just has that 2 championship gap, or maybe even 1.
2.
I would say 2, because I think a lot of people are stubborn about it. Like, they don't necessarily want it to happen. They'll be happy, if he does make it. But at the same time, a lot of people want to cling on to the history of the sport, which makes a big part of the sport. Just remembering the great drivers that have come before. And like Senna comes into play for what he did off of track, the way he made people feel, the kind of glamour element to the sport, that likability factor. Outside of the sport, I'm not too sure how much he was kind of liked by drivers, but that's because he was winning, and that's because he was such a talent. So you can't. I don't really take that as much of a measure or yardstick, but they kind of evoke different feelings, and it might have been the same for Jackie Stewart back then. It might have been the same for Fangio back then. Yeah. Like, I can't speak because I never watched them. I was never around at the time, so that's why people say it's so hard to compare. But the first to do it definitely comes into play. But at the same time, if Lewis is able to definitively break the championship records, then you have to say that he is the greatest of all time, or at least up there. I think it's very hard to look past that. Oh, we got so many questions coming in. So many questions. So what are your thoughts on sprint races? Sprint races. I think
last time, didn't we? We spoke about the idea of sprint races last time, and we've obviously had a little bit more time to think about it since. So has your opinion changed since?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. What about you?
No, not me neither, really. I still think it's an interesting idea. I think it's worth trying. I think it's worth looking at. And there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's not Formula One," blah blah blah. Now's the year to find out, isn't it? Because it's a weird year. It's the final year before everything changes. It's COVID year again. There's going to be lots of changes in terms of, like we've talked about, like we've mentioned with Canada and Turkey and that sort of stuff. There's going to be all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I think now's the time. And if it's rubbish, it's rubbish. If it's good and it's got potential, then let's use it for maybe, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 different a year. But something that someone mentioned, actually, I can't remember where it was now, but they mentioned a really good point. Might have been Veloce, actually, thinking about it. I'm sure. Let's use sprint races and let's use this more interesting, in inverted commas, format for the boring tracks.
Yeah.
So let's look at that in terms of, we've got the iconic tracks like Spa, Silverstone. We know those tracks are going to produce good races. Every year there's something that comes out of that. Let's use it for the ones that are a bit more predictable. Let's do that. Let's inject a little bit of spice and a little bit of excitement and interest into these ones that are usually considered a bit of a snowfest. And I think that's quite a good approach, to be honest.
Yeah, I think F1 have been forced to take a little bit more proactive action in all sorts of areas and try different things and be more receptive to certain tracks out of necessity. So them trying this, like you said, it's the perfect time to do it because all contracts are out of the window. Everything's had to be rewritten. They've learned to be so much more flexible. We've seen it by them handing out additional money and funding to do things like sprint races. And I think fundamentally, I hope these kind of things keep on happening because we've seen if we have to, we can adapt and learn to change and take on new concepts and think about things differently. So I'm looking forward to see what happens. Hopefully it just won't mirror what's going on in an everyday race. I know this is unrelated from Hugh, but how are both your days going? You got this. My day is going all right. A bit of a nightmare with the first stream, but we're saving this situation. Just gonna have 2 uploads in one day, 3 uploads in a week. This is full-time YouTuber business. No, this is not full-time. It's not a business. It's a very demanding hobby, but I am enjoying it. My day's going all right. I'm enjoying doing this live stream. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, it's good. I always enjoy doing these streams. Sakki and I haven't actually known each other that long. So the first time that you would have seen us two together, or the first time you'd have seen me on the channel, was shortly after Sakki and I actually started speaking. So it's always good to catch up with another F1 fan and discuss these topics. It's something something to look forward to while we still can't really do that much fun stuff. Obviously, as well, we both have full-time jobs that are quite demanding. Sakki does what he does, and I do what I do in terms of education and things like that. So it's a nice little break to do this as well and to think about something else instead of the day-to-day stuff. And I went to the gym as well today, which was good.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of that. I'm considering rejoining the gym, but we'll have to wait and see. As for me, this is a big departure.
I'm training for these driver tryouts, Sakki, for Portuguese.
So yeah, if you haven't watched the video that we put up yesterday, it's the launch of the Racing House fictional racing team, where I explore the business side and talk about what you have to go through to get into F1 and the finance and marketing and business. So go and check it out. It's a great video. got another YouTuber, Ben from BMPH Racing, that joined me on that challenge. Go and vote for my design, because I need the votes, or vote for Ben's design, depending on which one you like. But yeah, it's all fun. It's all enjoyment. A big departure from my day job, working in housing, the fun world of housing. But yeah, my day's going well. Had a good day at work. So got another question. How do you think Vettel will do this year? From Alfred Parker. Thanks for that, Alfred. You know, yeah, I don't think Vettel will do well at all. I was so hopeful when he moved, given the Racing Point performances last year. But with the rule changes, I think, like we discussed in the first stream, they're really suffering. They really are suffering. They're probably the biggest victim of 2021 because they just, I don't think their engine is necessarily as aligned to the car as the Mercedes. So they just aren't able to compensate in terms of those technical updates. They just aren't able to do it. Intrinsically, the team isn't used to dealing with difficulties like that. So they're probably not set up to do it. So Vettel, I'll be happy to see him scoring points again, if I'm being honest, but I'm not quite sure how likely that is to happen because it's so competitive amongst the drivers. Like we keep on saying, this is probably the most competitive year so far. We don't know how it's going to pan out. We'll have to wait until about halfway through to see who's the more dominant team, because that's what tends to happen. Because I've been looking at all the stats, believe me, it tends to be a dominant team that just pushes through at about halfway. If it does turn out to be a competitive year, but Sebastian Vettel, I'll be happy if he gets his confidence up, gets control of the car, starts scoring points again, and is able to compete with his teammate as a bare minimum, because he's been brought there to do a certain job. And, you know, Lawrence Stroll is no joker. He's not a joker. He means business. He's there to win races. And them talking of lawsuits and taking people to court after Breakgate, you know, pretty sure he'll wield an axe or bring in someone that is more confident and capable of developing that team, because he's there to win. He's not there as kind of a playboy's ground to just go racing, that old mindset to just go out and enjoy racing. It's a business for him. So let's hope that Vettel does bring at home some points for Aston Martin. What do you think?
Something that you said just really hit me, because I let back. When you said about you hope that he's going to be competitive with his teammate, and when the deal was first announced for Vettel to join Aston Martin, there's this whole thing about, oh, he's going to destroy Stroll, he's going to be exposed, and then things kind of shifted and said, oh, it'll be really good for lads to learn from Vettel and be a good mentor. Now you're talking about him hopefully being able to compete, when until recently Stroll was just written off as a daddy's boy that wasn't really that talented. And I think it goes both ways. Stroll's probably better than a lot of people realised, but Vettel's just. I think when the deal was first announced, I think we would have all bought Sebastian Vettel stock. I think we expected that. I think we expected him to come good, but I'll be very much selling now. I'm not a big believer in Vettel moving forward through this season. I think I would like him to be. I think a good Sebastian Vettel in F1 is a good thing. I think it adds another wrinkle to the storylines, having a 4-time world champion be competitive. But I can't see it. I don't see that in my mind's eye in terms of how Vettel in that car can work his way through the Ferraris, work his way through the McLarens. Do you know what I mean? I think that I don't know. I can't see him being that competitive.
Yeah, it goes back. I can't remember if. Yeah, I think I said it in one of our previous live streams. Like winning, getting on the podium, getting points. It's kind of sometimes it's a habit thing. It's a mental thing. Like if you look at the stats, I think it's probably been about 18 months since. Is it 18 months since he last scored points? It can't be that bad.
Surely not.
No. I think it's, but yeah, think it's been a long time since he's been in and around the points consistently, because last year he had a really bad year. So it could potentially be a case where he's just so far off his teammate yet again, which is red flags for a team owner and a team principal. So, like I said, I really do hope he is able to bring home the bacon, or the faux bacon, if you're vegan out there.
They're spending a lot of money on him as well. It's a lot. It's a lot to not be establishing a good, a good kind of baseline of performance to go through the year.
Let's hope he can bring home the performances in the next race. So who do you think will take the first driver championship post Hamilton after he retires or loses a championship?
As it stands, I think Max is the favourite, isn't he? I think he's the champion in waiting. But I think the longer it goes on, the more you're going to see other contenders coming through, like Charles. Once that Ferrari eventually works its way back to the front, because it's inevitable, isn't it? Ferrari are inevitable. Depends who fills that Mercedes spot. Is George Russell going to come in and kind of assert his dominance in that Mercedes spot, or is it going to be another driver that comes in and takes that spot? Because whoever's taking that lead Mercedes spot, you'd have to assume he's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
As it stands, I think it probably makes sense that Max is the favourite, but I can see that changing quite quickly,
To be honest, I think this year is Max's time. I think he has to do it this year. I'm going to put it out there.
You think it's now or never, don't you? You think it's now or never?
Yeah, I do think it's now or never, because so much is going to change in 2022. We've heard about Honda basically continuing in their relationship with Red Bull after they've left the sport. So technically they're not really leaving, because I think they're going to provide some sort of consultancy role to help with their engine development, because I was saying it in my prediction video, that is not a small task at all. It's basically like a whole other business, which Red Bull just aren't equipped to deal with. We've seen it in terms of how bad the engine was at certain points with other teams. And if you're learning at the same time as running an F1 team, it's just not feasible as a prospect for a team that's trying to challenge for a title. So them being involved after they've left the sport is a good thing. But at the same time, who knows what's going to happen in 2022? We don't know. It's unpredictable. And if all the teams are redirecting funds and tokens towards 2022, we look at the teams with the most budget. Red Bull aren't that team. It's Mercedes and Ferrari. So the odds say that they're going to be the more likely ones to make the most of that. But then again, they've got the trump card of Adrian Newey, who's the master of capitalizing when these rule changes take place. So I really do think it's this season for Max, or potentially it could not happen for a while. He needs to capitalize for me on that. The young bloods, the adrenaline, the testosterone that's pumping through his body, that ability to just be quick, because you've got youth on your side. You're more fearless. We see it with drivers all the time. They storm onto the scene, they're really quick, and then it kind of just fades a little bit as they potentially build their experience and learn to master their skills a little bit more. So there
was an interesting quote that came through as well about Honda and Red Bull. So this was from Christian Horner. He said, for the new engine, whenever that comes, potentially 2025, we're obviously building up a structure. We're going to inherit some great people and talent from Honda, but we're absolutely committed to getting the right people in the right roles in an efficient manner that integrates fully with the chassis side of the business. So what that says to me is they are transferring staff from Honda to Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, yes, it says Honda are leaving F1.
But they're just 2P in them.
Not really.
It's just like a merger, isn't it? It's acquisition. They've basically just acquired the... we love you too, Daniel Kvyat. They basically just acquired that Honda department. So yeah, that's a good thing, but at the same time, when you're trying to merge two separate companies together, you will know that's a really hard thing to do. Culturally, logistically, there's so many different other elements, legal aspects. You're basically inheriting a whole other family purely
this
based
was
on.
part of the thing with Honda. So Honda's F1 kind of staffing is really interesting because they don't just have F1 staff. It's not they don't do it like that. They put them on placements basically, and they say, right, you're going to work for the F1 team for a few years, and we want you to specifically learn more about this area, so they can go back to the main mark.
Yeah.
The thing is, if Red Bull are taking over some of taking some of those staff with them, are they then going to send them back over and they're going to be re-employed by Honda? And then are they going to appoint new members of staff from Honda? And are they going to do kind of a labour trade exchange rotation thing? Or have they said, right, okay, we want you now work for Red Bull and you're based in Milton Keynes. You don't live in Japan anymore.
That's a good
So
point.
it's that sort of stuff. It's those things that are those questions that at the minute I think are unanswered. And I don't have any secret access to Christian Horner's voicemails or anything like that. So not yet, anyway. So it's that consideration as well, like the actual human aspect of it. Because it's fine that you have these Japanese engineers and people that come directly from Honda, but are you then going to say, right, you live here now for the next 5 years, 10 years? It's a big ask.
The more that I think about it, the more I think it's a mammoth task for Honda and for Red Bull to get this right, especially with the rule change. Oh God, yeah. Like for me, it's Max's year, or potentially it might not happen at Red Bull for him because there's so much uncertainty, especially for Red Bull, because they don't have the biggest budget. They're probably going through the most of a change in terms of downgrading their budget, restructuring, merging with another organization. Yeah, for me, this year, it's Max is probably Lewis's biggest competitor. But after that, it could easily be a George or a Charles. It could easily be. Right, moving on to the last question. What do you think about Canada getting replaced by Turkey? Yeah, unfortunately, Canada aren't able to hold the Grand Prix in their country this year because of COVID restrictions and quarantining implications. So I think it's 14 days that they have to go into quarantine when they get there, which just makes it not very practical given the calendar. So it's been replaced by Turkey, which made a return to the lineup of races last year. So I'm excited to see it back again, to be honest. It's different. I know we'd get that effect.
Yeah, so Turkey was a crazy race last year, wasn't it? Due to the wet track and everything that was going on with the newly laid tarmac and stuff. Hopefully it's not going to be so extreme this year, because I think a few people had criticisms of Turkey last year due to it just being crazy. I won't mind. I won't mind seeing something like that again, where things become really unpredictable and all that sort of stuff. Because again, we picking up on those themes, and I think that's where, for me, a lot of these kind of themes started, where we were talking about things in terms of Lewis just being a class of his own, and Max being very, very quick, and then just having a little wobble. So he had those spins and things like that. Turkey was a great race, and I hope that with a little bit more wear on that tarmac, slightly less intense conditions, we can actually see that track for what it is, which is actually a really good track in its own right. It doesn't need those crazy conditions to be a really good circuit. Obviously, there was all that excitement around turn 8, going full throttle around turn 8. I'd like to see that in good conditions and see the contrast between what was just a crapshoot really last year, where anything could have happened, to something where we can actually see the circuit in terms of how good it is. Because I really like that we have this mix this year of, it's unfortunate circumstances, but we have the Tilkedromes that obviously are very polarizing. Then we've got these more retro circuits that are tight but full of character. And then you've got the circuits that are kind of in the middle, like Turkey, where they're a bit Tilkery-ish, but they've got a bit of character to them, and you can tell it's Turkey when you see the footage, which I think is a nice compromise. And yeah, it's a shame about Canada, because Canada's obviously a bit of a fan favorite and that sort of stuff. But it's much better that we've got this contingency in place where we can still race. I think that's the beauty of having such a large calendar this year, that we know that we can have a lot of racing, or circumstances pending.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing. Colin Martin saying so is one of the most exciting races last year. Got to agree with you, and I'm excited to see what it has in store. Like you said, it's going to be hopefully a great race, regardless of the condition of the track or any weather that comes into play. So yeah, lots to look forward to in the coming few races. Going to call it a day here. Thank you for joining us on this part 2, the live streams that we've carried out today. 3 videos in 2 days. Trying to keep the content coming for you. But yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. If you're watching this on playback, leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. And if you've enjoyed the content, please hit the like button to show some appreciation. We do love to get the video out to more people, and that's one way that it can happen. So thank you, Daniel.
Before we go, make sure that you find us on Instagram as well. We are very, very close now to 50,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah,
we're very, very close.
Go on, find us on
Instagram. There's potentially a giveaway coming for 50,000 Instagram followers. So watch this space if you go and make sure you're following the page on Instagram.
Yep. Adam's on point. Yeah, definitely. Go and check out the Instagram. Plenty of content there for you to enjoy. But yeah, until next time, everyone, thanks for watching.